To South Africa, where a new government has been sworn in and the country's first coalition cabinet since the end of apartheid 30 years ago. President Cyril Ramaphosa's African National Congress has been forced to govern with 5 rivals after failing to achieve an outright majority in May's elections. The centrist Democratic Alliance, led by white South Africans, had been the main opposition party and will now run 6 ministries. Cyril is Professor of African Politics at the University of South Africa in Pretoria. He can guide us through this. Welcome to DW, Professor. So we have South Africa's Party of Black Liberation, the ANC, now having to share power for the first time in 30 years with the Democratic Alliance, a party often characterised as representing the country's rich white minority. Where do you see the greatest points of friction?
Thank you for inviting me. The greatest points of friction are mostly in some aspects of domestic policy as well as foreign policy. Looking at domestic policy, it would be obviously the issues around broad-based black economic empowerment or affirmative action, which the African National Congress in the past 30 years has often been pushing as one of these or some of these policies for redress of many years of apartheid and racial discrimination. So therein lies one of the fault lines whereby the two parties might clash. But there's also this issue around corruption. The opposition, former opposition, one should say, Democratic Alliance, has often been very vocal around, state corruption in the government sector and so on. Now that they are joining, the African National Congress in a government of national unity, I'm expecting the sparks to fly in that department, because now they will be inside those government departments and ministries with the African National Congress. The other part where I think they are quite likely to clash, especially in terms of foreign policy, is those things whereby the African National Congress, being a mostly leftist political party and organization, has often been inclined towards those things that the Democratic Alliance, are not normally supporting. Things like whereby they would like to go mostly softly towards states such as Zimbabwe, states such as Cuba, states such as Russia, and so on. And then we can look at that more, but those are the main ones that I foresee where the two parties might have issues here.
Starting domestically, is there anything to suggest that diluting the ANC's grip on power by adding another 5 parties to the governing mix will help the country deal with the fundamental problems like unemployment and literally keeping the lights on and even water in the taps?
A simple answer from me is no, because most of these issues have got a legacy of many decades, not even 30 years since the ANC took power in 1994. So will bringing these parties together in a government of national unity or coalition of sorts resolve these issues? My simple answer is there is no. We still have a very, very big mountain to climb with these parties. We will see whether this will, not disturb the coalition or the government of national unity, but therein lies also one of the main fault lines of this coalition government.
OK, doubtless we will talk again in the future. For now, though, thank you so much for guiding us through that so clearly. Professor Cyril from the University of South Africa.
Now let's cross over to our correspondent in Johannesburg, Privilege Musvaneri. Privilege, it took days of negotiations to get here. How stable will this new government be?
Stability will depend on how the parties are going to commit to what they agreed in terms of the negotiations that they had to form this coalition government. If you look at how much it took, yes, it was days of negotiations, but on face value, they look as if everything is stable. But behind the scenes, things look still shaky, because an example is of the province of Gauteng in Johannesburg, where they are still debating and they are still in disagreement in terms of how they are going to form the provincial government. The Democratic Alliance, which is one of the core partners, by Tuesday was still threatening to walk away because they were saying that the African National Congress Party is negotiating in bad faith. So it is evident that the parties still need to warm up and build trust.
In terms of policy, what are the most divisive issues then?
When it comes to policies, the Democratic Alliance is viewed as a pro-business. And the African National Congress, some of the partners, if you look at the leading labor movements like COSATU, they view the DA as pro-white minority, which they say that they are controlling the economy. So you find that the ANC is also has got pressure behind it from other partners like the COSATU, who still view their partner, the DA, as people who are not pro-labor. So these are some of the divisive issues that ANC will need to navigate going forward.
Let's look at foreign policy. In December 2023, South Africa opened a case alleging Israel is committing a genocide against Palestinians in Gaza to the International Court of Justice, and the court is still due to rule on this. How united are the parties in the coalition on this issue?
In the previous administration, debates that would go on in Parliament, they would trade different views, where you find that the DA would accuse the ANC of wanting to gain political mileage by taking Israel to the ICJ. But generally, they all agree that the conflict should come to an end and that bloodshed should be stopped. But when they are now in a coalition, they are now in a unity government, any decision that is going to be made from now on, it will be a product of negotiation, and they have to come up with one strong view on this conflict if they are to make any decisions.
DW correspondent Privilege Musvaniri there. Thank you very much.